Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing, the video broadcast series that features the powerful women from the shop floor to the C-suite who are changing the world through engineering and manufacturing. Today, I have Terri, who is the Senior Application Specialist of R&D Automation. Hi, Terri. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Meaghan?
Good. I didn't want to say your last name because before we got on here, I forgot to ask you how you pronounce it. So can you, to start off our conversation, can you reintroduce yourself and then let us know what you do at R&D Automation?
So, yes, ma'am, I am Terri Laferriere. So what I do at R&D, senior applications. So I really get to do a lot of the brainstorming and make some pictures and do some pricing and make the quotes and the proposals, make everybody happy. And in a nutshell, really.
That's awesome. And then for those of us who aren't really familiar with R&D, I want to get into a little bit more of some of the stuff that they're creating within manufacturing. But I want to start off with your journey because, one of the things that we're facing as a sector is a skills gap. Some are calling it a bunch of different things, but being a woman in the sector, you know that we're still kind of on the low end of representation. I think the last stat that I read was from the Women in Manufacturing and an organization that they partnered up with, and we're at 33%, which is great. But I'm always curious to know how you ended up in engineering and manufacturing, because with someone like me, it was completely by accident, and I'm not even in it like you are. I'm just a technical writer. I don't actually use my hands to create some of these cool things that you're creating. So what is your starting point on this journey and how did it lead you to where you are today at R&D?
Oh my goodness. So my journey actually began as a young teenager. I worked for a mom and pop optical shop that was fairly local to where I lived at the time. And I learned how to do prescription layouts, how to
Okay.
put the prescription into the lenses, how to make them into a final product. I did that for a couple of years. When I then went to a global manufacturer, which actually is a value added reseller of plastic and polycarbonate optical lenses.
Okay.
So I was 18 when I started there. I started as a temp, walking into the door, or in through the door, I should say. And really, I started as a temp, and within a couple of months, I was hired on full time. And from there, I went to be what they refer to as an equipment technician. So I was a specialized technician for a certain group of machines. I did an internship into our mechanical engineering department and never left. I did have some other ventures. I did some work in quality in our quality
Mhm.
department. I did some work in our IT department, but I stayed primarily with that equipment engineering. I did equipment reliability, um, just anything we could do to raise the yields, raise the throughput, reduce overhead as far as materials that were involved in creating the product.
Okay. And then, so you've hit a bunch of different areas. And when you first started out at 18 as a temp, how did you hear about that opportunity? Was it something that, a teacher shared with you? Did you look it up in a newspaper and filled out an ad? Like how was that process like? Because what I'm trying to get to in terms of recruiting the next generation workforce, because we need it. I'm trying to figure out where those gaps are in terms of, educating kids in high school, even kids before high school, like what these opportunities are and how teachers and even counselors can start talking about these opportunities so that we can fill them a lot faster. So, how did you learn about that temp opportunity?
So in this instance, I think there might be a little bit of a shift in how things are presented and communicated because
Yeah,
there was no Indeed or things like
yeah,
that back then. So in my instance, where I worked at, the first place that I worked at, we had people there that had moved on, but everyone was still very friendly. So it was word of mouth. Um,
Okay.
and in that particular instance, you had to apply at the temp agency in order
Okay.
to be moved on. So in the temp agency itself, now that part may still apply in that they have the visibility to all the different openings. And
Hmm.
I was afforded, do you want this type of role or do you want this place specifically? So I
Okay.
chose place specifically.
Gotcha. So now fast forward to today. You are the senior applications engineer at R&D Automation. So can you go through what a day in the life looks like for you and some of the things that you're responsible for and maybe talk about a specific project or something you're currently working on?
A day in the life. There, I would say that no 2 days are identical for sure. On any given day, we can be doing brainstorm meetings, reviewing customer specifications, reviewing proposals with customers, working on quote sheets, um, crafting electronic sketches of our proposals just to give, visual discussion points. Meeting with vendors, internal, external training, customer evaluations for, quality inspections, those types of things. I mean, it's a pretty
Mhm.
wide range of things that I'm afforded to be able to do on a day-to-day basis.
So R&D is in the automation space. Can you break down what some of their main services or products are and how, like where you are in the sector within manufacturing so that we can paint a better picture for our audience what it is exactly R&D does?
So our R&D Automation, as you know, was founded in 2005, or I think was founded in 2005 because you've been working with us a little bit. We're now located in Lakewood Ranch, Florida. Our main focus or our heightened focus is robotics, manufacturing, packaging, assembly. It's all within the manufacturing sector. We do quite a bit of packaging. We have a number of inline packaging machines, whether it's horizontal or vertical. We do a
Mhm.
lot of assembly and a lot of custom automation.
That seems to be your bread and butter, that customization part of it.
Yes.
And I saw like if for those of you who are not familiar with R&D automation, you should get familiar with them because they do have a lot of really cool videos on YouTube that shows what they're creating and helping customers out with. I know this is not really in the manufacturing space, but one of the things that I was really interested in was the poker solution that you featured on your YouTube thing, and I was like, this is really interesting. But it showcases how advanced technology has become and where it's going. And one of the things I'm always curious about in terms of your position and others that are similar to it, how do you keep up to date with the technology as itself is updating? Because there's a lot of things that are changing, things are getting faster. And the great thing that I like about engineering and manufacturing is it's not, you go to school or you have one learning experience and then you're done. Like you have to keep up with your education and continue to learn and continue to improve. So how do you keep up with the advancements and what are your main resources to keep educating yourself of the trends that are happening?
I internet a lot. We do quite a bit of vendor focused training. So we have different manufacturers come in and they'll show us their new products, the key features, things like that, how they can, help us with specific applications. There may even be instances where we don't understand that they even have a solution to our problem. We
Mhm.
bring them in and they may offer, they may say, no, we don't have anything, but try this other company. So there's a lot of collaboration where that's concerned as well. So we do lean on each other's experiences, our histories, our strengths for sure. We, as I mentioned, we do a lot of focused training. That's, I'd say, very key for our development as well.
I met a couple members of your team already, and it seems like a really fun group to work with. And this stuff that you're doing is just it's so fascinating to me. And you know, to move through engineering and manufacturing, I feel like you have to have, a great team behind you, but also some really good mentors. So who have been your most memorable mentors throughout your journey in engineering and manufacturing?
This might sound odd. So if I were to say who's been my mentor overall, my mother and my daughter have been really key for me in my growth and development, even professionally. Hey, the light just shut off.
That's all right.
If I was to pick a mentor or two mentors that were specifically career related, I don't know that I could without feeling like I was shortchanging another dozen. I've
Yeah.
had a lot of phenomenal people surrounding me throughout my over 25 years, ouch, of being in this business. And it's been a phenomenal ride. It's been a great ride. I've learned a tremendous amount in learning from those people. I've gotten to be afforded not only their positive experiences, but the things that, the landmines that they encountered along the way. So I didn't have to step on those.
Yeah.
That was critical. And anyone that would teach me what they learned, I sat down and learned.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that they knew, I was more than willing to sit down and just absorb everything that they would throw at me.
I think I think that's a great picture to paint too, because I feel like there's still some of these misconceptions that are really negative in terms of what manufacturing is and you know what women experience within the sector. So I've had conversations with women who've had really bad experiences, but I've also had more conversations with women who've had really wonderful experiences. And I think it's important to highlight that where this is an industry for everyone, and it's a great collaboration experience because in order to find the best solutions to the hardest problems, you have to work well with teams and collaborate. And you kind of have that family environment as well too, where of course you're going to bicker with your family, so you have those moments too. But it's really important to highlight, all of the people that you mentioned where they stepped on the landmine so you don't have to. That's just what the sector's about, and I think it's a really fun sector to be. There are other challenges that we're facing as American manufacturers right now. We have the supply chain issues, labor shortages, training obstacles. We're losing teachers as well as the skilled talent on the shop floor. So I'm curious to know, how are these types of challenges affecting what you do in your position, and what are some of the things R&D might be doing to overcome some of these challenges, or even on your level, like on a personal level, what are you doing to overcome some of these in your position? Because I know it can't be easy right now with how things are made, and if you can't get a part when you need it, that's going to affect uh, getting things to your customers right away. So what are some of the things you guys are doing to work around that, or kind of resolve so that you're not upsetting people?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, the supply chain is no shortness of crazy.
Yeah.
And it seems to be rippling. It's continuing. It doesn't seem to be slowing down quite yet. But
Yeah.
as far as trying to mitigate the effects of that, for our most common items, we do try to purchase very early into the build cycle, where historically things that were on the shelf we could wait till further out.
Yeah.
We actually needed it. We're at the point now where we know it's going to be, X number of weeks before we can get something. So we purchase much earlier in our build cycle.
Okay.
Our standard components, where we can, we will bulk purchase. So that way we have certain components on hand that we know we use a lot of. So we don't run into that. And that's not always possible, but we do, actively try to keep up on those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
As far as, with the turnover rate, that can be a little challenging from me trying to deal with vendors and being able to just pick up the phone and call somebody and know that, okay, your expertise is this particular area. I need to ask you a question. Well, that person may not be employed there anymore. They may have moved on. Finding talented people is very difficult because talented people have pick of the litter, so to speak, of where they want to be. So picking up the phone and knowing that you have that person on the other end at that particular vendor or whomever it might be, manufacturer, can sometimes be challenging. And once that person goes, their tribal knowledge goes with them. So not often does that get passed on. So, we roll with it the best that we can. That's really all you can do. That's really all we can do. One of the things that we also do is we take on a lot of our own machining work. We have a full machine shop in our facility as well. So we mitigate quite a bit of that from that aspect also.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I've seen other manufacturers actually expand on some of the processes that they normally didn't include in their business strategy, but they're adding them on now so that they can provide one solution for their customers. So if they were like just CNC machining, they're now adding other processes so that their customers don't have to shop around for different vendors. And it seems to be going really successful for them. So I'm kind of curious to see if that's, how the sector is going to adapt to, where you see some of these companies adding more of those processes onto what they originally started with. In terms of the skills gap, because I'm really, really passionate of what companies are doing to get the next generation really excited. And who does not like robots and automation? Like, I love all of R&D's videos on YouTube. I've watched them multiple times because it's just fascinating to me, the technology that's incorporated into the solutions to make them running, efficiently and effectively. So in terms of the skills gap, what are your personal thoughts on how to recruit the next generation of applications engineers? Because not everybody is going to know what that means. So what would your pitch be, I guess, to the next generation to get them excited about what an applications engineer is?
Well, so for starters, an applications engineer can be a very nondescript type of position. What it means to us isn't necessarily what it means to the next company. So that's actually a very difficult question to answer. But honestly, for anyone, I would highly recommend just try. Just try.
Yeah.
If you have even a inkling, if it sparks any little bit of interest, give it a try. This wasn't my only role in life. I did a lot of other things, from, serving tables to roofing to I did a lot of different things as a kid. And this particular role in, just being engineering related always was a very natural fit for me. It came very, very natural as far as my strengths. I always had the aptitude. So no matter what I went off and did, I always circled back around and kind of came back to this type of role. I was very fortunate As I mentioned, when I went to the Temp Agency at 18 years old and said, hey, I want to work at this place. And they said, okay, we'll call you. I worked there for almost 19 years, and I did a tremendous amount of growing, not just because I was a kid when I started there, but we learned how to play nice in the sandbox together. They did a lot of great training. It wasn't just skills training or hard skills training. It was soft skills training, which I think is huge. I think that's huge.
It's really surprising to see how for granted soft skills are being taken for, because with my daughter and her friends, I always go back to her because she's 18 now. She's graduating this year, but they grew up in a completely different way than from what I grew up. They were all attached to their phones and doing crazy video stuff with the video apps and everything. But when it comes to like socializing face to face, it's really hard for them to do because they're so used to communicating on their screens all the time. So that was something that I had to really instill in my daughter, because she was becoming an introvert so much where she was okay communicating on the phone, but then when she was face to face to someone, she kind of shut down a little bit. So I put her in dance. Now I can't get her to stop talking, and she's really good at communicating, but it's just really interesting to see the shift in generation. So that's one of the things I'm excited about with all this technology. I feel like the next generation is already so heavily involved with it that they would excel and it wouldn't take them that long. But with the basic like soft skills and hard skills, that's another thing that we need to help with them, because I feel like they're just a little disconnected from them.
Yeah, it's definitely a paradigm shift from when I was that age, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know we're in the midst of trade show season and our time is almost up here. So I want to give you the opportunity to, one, my last question before we get into how people can get connected and where they can meet R&D. If you had one piece of advice or one ask for our audience, what would that piece of advice or that one ask be? I'll let you pick which one you want to answer.
Oh my goodness. That's a really open-ended question.
It is. It is. I do that on purpose.
One piece of advice. And I guess really I'll just go back to just try. Give it a try. If you don't like it, that's okay. There's always the next thing. You can always
Yeah.
try something else. One of my favorite sayings is everything you want is on the other side of fear. Don't be afraid to try. So
I love that. Yeah. Um, I relate to that so much because I just recently quit my full-time job to do Mavens and my freelance work full-time, and I was scared out of my mind. But if I let that take over, I wouldn't be here today. So I really like that. So Terri, how can people learn more about R&D automation? What trade shows can people find you at? Where are you going to be? And then how can they connect with you as well?
okay, so first, trade shows. We'll be at PAC Expo in Austin, Texas, May 10 through 12. We are
Okay.
exhibiting at Automate in Detroit, June 6 through 9. ATX South in Charlotte, North Carolina, June 14 through 16. We'll be at IMTS in Chicago in September, and PAC Expo in Chicago in October. So we're pretty active in the trade show land right this moment, which is fantastic.
Yes, that would be great to see. So I'll actually be at IMTS and ATX too. So
Oh,
hopefully you and I can run into each other, because I'd love to meet you face to face and actually look at your booth too. I don't know if I can make it to Automate. I think that's around graduation time for my daughter, so I might not make that show. But how can they get directly a hold of R&D in case they have any questions or need help with some of their applications?
so always through our website, rndautomation.com. We also are very active on LinkedIn. So either of those they're very readily available for any and all There are links to connect to us, to the sales team directly. And there you can also see any number of videos of our products that we have put out in the field. And it's just so you are aware too, that the poker video that you were talking about earlier, that's not new for us. That's actually a fairly old video. That was before
Is it really? I thought it was like brand new.
That is engineers having playtime, which is, it's a lot of fun here. We still to this day have, a lot of side projects that we like to unload and have a good time. So
I think that's awesome.
Focused type of organization.
You should go to Sean and tell him that for one of your trade shows, do you want to do something for like a poker tournament to get people to your booth and have people who come to your booth play blackjack with a robot or something.
That'd be fun.
I think you should convince Sean to do that. He's probably gonna be like, Meaghan, what are you doing to me? And I'll take that fall for you. That's fine.
We'll dust off our poker machine, our poker robot.
That'd be great. Well, Terri, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with me here on Mavens of Manufacturing. I really enjoy everything that R&D is doing, and I love working with your team as well too. For those watching, I do some marketing stuff for R&D, and they're a really fun bunch. They know their stuff, so if you aren't following them, make sure you do follow them. And thank you all for joining me on another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. I hope you have a great day. And thank you again, Terri, as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.